I really thought Quad was big because of word of mouth.
I think it was. I mean, I remember, hearing Quad before I ever got involved with the station, and I remember it kind of having a life of its own.
Yeah.
Kind of.
That everybody knew about it. Whether people listened or not,
Right.
everyone knew that
Right.
station.
Well, I think the great top 40 stations, and it's the same philosophy I kind of have with what we're doing here, is if it's a great radio station, people will come and spend a little time with it. Now, it may not be their favorite station.
Could be on their preset
Right.
third choice.
And they'll come by and visit for a little bit, and they'll hear, whatever they want to hear, and then they'll go on their way. But you're in their consciousness, you're on their top of their mind, and they do spend a little bit of time with you. Now, they may not be people that spend a great degree of time, but they stop by for a little visit every now and then. And I think the great top 40 stations of the past had that. I mean, you talk about KFRC, Dr. Don Rose.
I grew up with that.
Yeah, everybody knew him. That doesn't mean they spent all their time there, but the events in the station were so huge. When you went to work or when you went to school, everybody was talking about what Dr. Don Rose did on the radio that morning.
The great thing about that station was you could get it in Sacramento.
Right, and that was, in the days of the AM top 40s that were still, huge at that time.
We saw it change, 79, 80s, when everything switched from AM to FM as far as music listeners.
Which, bringing that up, I mean, that's kind of similar, I think, with internet radio, kind of that transition is happening again from terrestrial radio to internet radio.
And kind of like in the 90s, Quad, we talked about how it was top 40 in the 80s, Quad had become an alternative station, an independent alternative station. It wasn't like any other station in the country. And I think that's kind of like that was a preview of what internet radio is becoming.
I think so. The thing is the 80s station that we have here is, I've looked and I've researched this. There's a few 80s stations here and there across the country, but to a large degree, it's a format that's been untouched by commercial radio. And I've never understood that, and being a fan of the 80s.
Well, I understand that the corporate CEOs and all the other decision makers only look at research, and if research says that only 59% of the people want it, they missed it by a point, so it isn't going to happen. Same with songs.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
There could be great songs, like Depeche Mode type songs, that only scored 59%. And because it didn't hit 60, they just got rid of it.
Well, I mean, look, the same thing happens with TV all the time. How many times do you hear about, or in the movies, that this script was passed around for, 10 years and no studio would pick it up. Somebody finally takes a chance on it, and it becomes, the hit of the summer.
Right.
So
we're in an era now where it's not so much about hits as it is about niches.
Yeah, I think that it went from broadcasting to narrowcasting, and I think a lot of broadcasters have a real hard time with going, okay, I'm going to just do this niche, I'm going to do this, and we're going to reach people that like the 80s, or like all Frank Sinatra, or like all Elvis, or all Beatles, or Beach Boys. There is an audience there that has been greatly underserved, because we were all going after that large piece, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to do a classic country station, and we're going to play songs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But internet radio provides you to do that because you're not after that whole pie. You're out a little piece will do just fine.
Sure.
Right.
Too much pie will kill you.
That's what they say. That's exactly what
Radio's learning that the hard way as they gag. But internet radio is, by taking smaller slices of the pie, I really think that websites like Amazon have really kind of led the way in that sense to show that, yeah, you can buy whatever you want now online. It doesn't have to be popular. It could be just what you want.
Right. I read a book, and it was called Long Tail.
I read that book by Chris Anderson. Great book. One of the best books I've ever read.
And it's about kind of the Amazons of the world that have, all these options, all these decisions, and even the lowest selling thing still has, a few people buying.
Marketing power.
Yeah.
And if you add up all those lowest selling things, collectively it becomes a big thing.
Right.
That's what they mean by the long tail.
Right.
If you picture a dinosaur, with a head and a long tail, well, the head and the body, that represents the hits, like on a distribution curve.
Right.
The long tail is all this other stuff that doesn't sell well, but that tail is longer than the body.
And I think that's what internet radio offers, is an endless variety, and different styles of music or different styles of programming.
Different strokes for different folks. Funny how that saying lives on.
Yeah, in a new way.
Rex, it's been great talking
Thank
with you.
you, Alex. Yeah.
Let's do this again.
We will. Thanks for dropping by OneMusicNetwork.com.
Here on SatTV.com, where you heard it first.
Excellent.